relationship with Honorable Dalmas since the year 1991, when I was a second year at Kenyatta University. And I came to know him due to very difficult circumstances. What happened when I joined university in 1990, I had a kid brother at Alliance High School. And I told my parents that because we were getting boom, as it was called then, I wanted to exercise some reasonable level of responsibility. And I assumed paying school fees for my kid brother who was at Alliance High School. But as fate would have it, when we were in second year, school fees was introduced for university students. Now, here I am, who was already very proud that I was a responsible young man, being a student and also paying fees for somebody else who is my younger brother. How was I going to go back to my parents and tell them, please take back this boy and start paying his school fees? So I said I was not going to do that. So I took the courage. I didn't know Dalmas Otieno. I took the courage, I went to a telephone booth, and I rang the Ministry of Transport. And I insisted, I got one secretary, this long-term secretary, Mrs. Ajode, and I told Mrs. Ajode that I wanted to speak to the minister. Then she asked me, who are you? I explained to her, can you leave a message? I said, no, I want to talk to him directly. The message is not for you. So she put me through, and I talked to Dalmas. He asked me why I wanted to talk to him. I told him I want to come and see you. I've actually rang because I want an appointment to come and see you. Is it something we can discuss on the phone? I told him no. So he gave me an appointment and I went to see him in his office. So when I went to his office, I explained to him my predicament and I told him that I want you to get me out of this predicament because I feel so much embarrassed to get back to my parents and tell them that now they have to take up the school fees for my kid brother again. So he told me that he was going to pay my school fees. We were in second year at the university. So he asked me how much money I wanted. I told him I don't want money. I just want you to do a check to Kenyatta University. And as generous as he was, he opened his briefcase and he wrote a check of I think 6,000 shillings in favor of Kenyatta University then, a Commercial Bank of Africa check. And that is what enabled me to see through my university without getting back to my parents. So that's my history with Dalmas Otieno. And it's at the same time, since 1992, that I also came to know Fred. I came to know Eddie, I came to know Lillian, I came to know Lucas and the rest of the family. I came to know Mama Fred, later on Mama Jane and Mrs. Oyanda there, and Canon Oyanda, I don't know if he's around. So I've been close to this family since that time. Now, one funny thing, Dalmas also told me that apart from paying my school fees because he had assumed that responsibility, he was also going to be giving me pocket money. So every other time when I wanted to go out as a student, I would call his office, either I go and pick money from him or I pick from his secretary. And it was a reasonable amount of money. I remember Eddie, if you remember those days, we were age mates more or less with Eddie, and we had a lot of energy then. So in one night, we would go to Carnival, we would go to Visions, we would go to Bubbles. And I used to buy drinks for Eddie and some other friends. And Eddie nicknamed me Millionaire, not knowing that the money I was using to buy them beer was actually his father's money. Just sit down, Eddie. Yeah. So that's my history with Dalmas. So up to today, myself and Eddie, we call each other Millionaire. So later on, in my private life as a consultant, when Dalmas was a member of parliament, I think this was now much later, he called me to do the strategic plan for his constituency. I think twice I did that strategic plan. In the year 2013, I happened to have done strategic plan for the office of the Prime Minister. Then subsequent to that, Honorable Eliud reached out to me to head his presidential campaign in 2013. So I was actually the head of his presidential campaign secretariat and chief campaign manager. And I got to work again very closely with Dalmas because apart from coining the acronym CORD, he was also co-chair of the CORD Coalition Management Board alongside Senator Musila, and I worked with him very closely. One thing that struck me with Dalmas then was that whenever there was a meeting of the Coalition Management Board, he would listen, and when he rose to speak, the meeting always ended because he always provided a solution to the issues of the day. Much later, in the year 2019, I reached out to Dalmas because I had the idea of coming up with Nyanza International Investment Conference. So I reached out to him because he struck me as a very brilliant fellow for advice. So he told me that if you want to do this, please go ahead, it is workable. We have got abundance of opportunities in Nyanza informed by comparative advantages. Get some people from the private sector and go the full hog. So we worked very closely with him in coming up with that idea. We brought on board so many professionals. I'm about to finish. And then later on, I decided to work with Ruto just before the last elections. Ruto was then deputy president. Then he called me to come and explain to him why I decided to work with Ruto. And I told him, I'm just benefiting from your analytical economics. I've looked at the statistics and I'm not seeing how anybody else is going to win these elections apart from Ruto. And I convinced him and he told me, if you have decided, please go the full hog. And I did exactly that. Much later, now in 2022, when I was appointed to the cabinet as a cabinet secretary, I went back to Dalmas and I asked him, what do you do in cabinet? He told me, if you want to excel in cabinet, prepare well for cabinet meetings. And I want to tell you that your situation is not different from mine because you are going into cabinet not because of your political clout, but because of your brains. I survived in the Mori cabinet for a very long time because of value proposition. Go to that cabinet and add value. And that is exactly what I did. I believe for the 1 year stint I had in cabinet, I benefited from Dalmas's advice, and I gave that cabinet my best. As I summarize, good people, Dalmas struck me as a highly visionary individual. Highly visionary. He was very innovative, very creative, very agile in his thinking. Imagine somebody who way back in 1988 had already come up with a bank, had already come up with an insurance company. This is somebody who was very creative. Dalmas was intelligent, he was charismatic, he was eloquent, but most importantly,